Hey everyone, I'm Melissa from Knitting the Stash, and this is episode 27 in the podcast series. This is the creative comeback episode. After last episode's survival knitting, this is a little more of a take a deep breath of fresh air, got some things going on. I'm really happy about it and happy to share with you. Welcome to anyone who's new, and welcome back to all of you guys who've been with me for a while. You can find me just about everywhere as Knitting the Stash on Instagram and Ravelry and on YouTube, of course, and on the blog, which is knittingthestash.wordpress.com. I'm coming to you today from Urbana, Illinois, where I'm a professor at the University of Illinois, and this is the fabled yarn room, which you saw, I think, a couple episodes ago. There's a loom back there and a work board. I got my oh god, I'm totally forgetting ball winder and Swift. This is my Swift. I'm kind of surrounded by all my fiber tools and stash, and I really like this space, so I thought I'd broadcast from here again. Plus, we're kind of late in the day. My son is getting a sewing lesson downstairs, which is really awesome. My husband is an excellent sewer. It's not a seamstress, not a tailor, like a sewer. Like, he likes using the sewing machine and making lots of different things. So he's like the perfect one to be giving my son a lesson in sewing. And so they're downstairs. If you hear a sewing machine noise, that's all that's going on down there, which I am pro. So I'm like, I will podcast while you guys are sewing. That's awesome. Let's see. So this is about a creative comeback, and it is about post-survival knitting to a certain extent. And I just wanted to extend like a huge warm thank you to everyone who sent me messages. You gave me a lot of reason to keep creating, even in the face of crazy semester squash. So thank you all so much. Those of you on Instagram that helped me out with some Spindles questions I had, and everyone on YouTube who left comments, compliments on the Linus shawl that I put together out of hand spun. So thank you all so much. It was nice to hear all your voices. So in today's cast, I have a couple of FOs, one that's not here and one that's here. I have some works in progress, a really fun acquisition that I want to talk to you about. And of course the Knit Together project, two long-term projects that we've been going on with the podcast. We've got the Knit Together project and the 4-ounce challenge, and I've got little announcements for both of those. And in the final segment, I'd like to talk about reading your knitting and thinking about remaking sweaters that you might find from either Goodwill or made out of acrylic yarn or something like that, and you really love them, but you want to make them in wool. We'll talk about that a little bit at the end. And we will have a guest. So in the FO segment, which will be up next, Spencer's going to come in and not only model his mounting park hat, I think, but he has a few things to say about and to us knitters. So that'll be a fun segment. Okay. Okay, guys, this is the segment on finished objects, and I have guest. This is Spencer.
I also co-own this room, but I haven't really been in this room for a long time. See, it used to be our guest room, and we would have guests, like family members would come, they could stay with us. But then it's kind of been inundated with yarn and spinning machines and things like this. Kind of medieval, I'm not sure what this is exactly, but anyway, ever since this has been in the room, it's no longer guest room. So anyway, it's nice to be here in the room as a guest.
Okay, good. So, as Spencer puts away his medieval torture device, so Spencer is here because the hat that I knit, the finished object Manning Park hat, you gotta hold it up.
My hat.
Fits his head, and his head is huge.
So great.
Okay.
Can I talk about it?
Yeah, it wouldn't fit anyone else's head, so that's why it wouldn't even fit on the mannequin's
head. Okay,
head.
so I have a really big head, and she knitted this to follow the pattern that she did for her other hat, which was blue. You've probably seen it here on the podcast. And this one's the same pattern. She follows patterns. And it has red on the inside, which I think is some kind of softer wool from like a softer sheep.
Superwash merino.
They superwash the sheep. And then it's big. And it has a little tuck thing going on back here, which I really like. It just has style. I think it also fits with
We've decided brown is like your color, like variations on
like sort of an autumnal kind of brown thing.
Especially with the beard, I think it
So yeah, so it's.
And I see that it already has like bits and pieces of dirt.
I was under the bus.
Because you were under the bus. This is Spencer of the Prison Bus. This is what you've been hearing about.
This hat actually appears in episode 25 of my Prison Bus series, which I'm just finishing filming right now.
So that explains all the dirt that I'm seeing on it. How well do you think it'll wear?
It seems pretty good. I mean, I've ripped holes in most of the things you've knitted for me so far, but I'm sure you'll patch them up.
How long has this one been? A week?
Yeah, it's going good. It's warm. It's toasty. You know when you put something on and it just feels like your item of clothing? That's how this feels.
That's good.
It feels really good. Yeah.
I'm glad. So that's the finished object for the week, and thank you for Spencer to come in and model it.
I'm not done.
Oh, there's more.
Okay, so Melissa asked me...
I've been hijacked.
Melissa asked me to bring a few of my own hats, just because she, on this podcast, tends to feature things that are kind of well-planned, well-organized, and follow patterns and things like that. So a few years ago, I was, I don't know if coerced is the right word, but that's the one that comes to mind. I was coerced into becoming a knitter. It was maybe like an ultimatum. Like,
it was good for you.
Either you learn to knit or you, So anyway, I was asked to bring in just a few of my finished objects, my FOs, and I have these two hats. So I'm just going to talk about them and take this one off. The first one is following the Manning Park-A-Lot pattern. And this is in the gray blue colorway using a 16 weight yarn and number 12 needles with titanium tips. And it's what I call the stovepipe hat. And
you gotta actually get down lower so they can see
it's the stovepipe hat. And this appears on Ravelry, on my Ravelry page, I think. And Melissa will link to it in the show notes. You don't have to wear it full stovepipe. You can give it a tuck in the back and it kind of becomes a little more reasonable.
It's super warm though because it's double.
Yeah, I think there's 38 skeins yarn on this one. And the way it works is that it has kind of like a liner on the inside. Again, it's the Marning Perkaway.
Hey, look. You have an end that you haven't woven in.
No, that's intentional.
Oh, found.
Anyway, anyway, that's the way that hat works. And it's been pretty popular. I sell a lot of these patterns. And then...
it will be after this.
I also knitted this one for a customer of mine. And it is in the fluorescent colorway using, again, the titanium tip needles. And
it fits your head. You really managed,
it's a big one.
You mastered the whole gauge thing.
And let me just talk to you about how I knitted this, because I think it's kind of cool. Alright, so what I did to knit this hat is first...
It's actually blowing out the camera. Like,
first I knitted like a scarf. So this one goes like this way. And then I joined it right here.
Wait, so did you knit the scarf to be... and you wrapped it around your head to see if it's big enough?
Yeah. So I knitted sort of like a scarf type thing with some funky little things using increases and decreases, all highly technical knitting stuff. And so anyway, the scarf thing happened first, and I put some ribbalots right here. I don't know if you can see that.
Get it up there like that. There you go.
Yeah.
That's a little better.
Okay. And then...
don't be blinded by the light of it.
Easy. This is in the fluorescent colorway. Anyway, it's reflective yarn. If you don't have this, you got to get it for your collection. It's the bomb. Then I joined the scarf together, and then I knitted this top thing using high-tech stitches of some kind, which I can't remember. And so basically this part goes around, and then this part is kind of like a cap.
And it's joined here. So it's actually, the top is just you picked up stitches around the scarf and then did your crown decreases in this awesome like elven kind of like swirly pattern.
High tech.
It's
anyway,
really great.
This one's not yet on Ravelry, but I think since I'm talking to you all about it, I should probably put it on Ravelry.
It's great for walks because it's like reflective.
It's good for like nursing home visits, anywhere you want to just relax people. I offer like a soothing kind of presence.
But you do wear it out with your flashlights, so you can shine the flashlight on it.
Yeah, James shined his flashlight at me and was blinded.
Exactly. It's good.
Anyway, those are just two of my knitted objects, finished, whatever we call them. And there'll be more if I ever get to appear on the podcast again.
Which, of course, you will.
Aww. Anyway, you do knit me a lot of great stuff,
and
I appreciate it. It's pretty awesome.
I'm going to talk about your sweater in a minute.
Oh.
Yeah.
You mean the panel? The tummy panel? she's knitted me a panel to cover
like
my tummy.
It
it goes right here, and it's about this big, and it's all cables.
See, that's the thing about knitting
really
sweaters for
great.
like small people versus knitting sweaters for like tall people. It's like so much more sweater to knit.
It's really good though.
Yeah.
It has a lot of I asked for lots of cables, and she's delivering lots of cables.
Yeah.
In a yarn that is really rough.
Which you like.
Yeah. Okay, you kicking me out?
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
Thanks for coming on.
It's good to be here in my former room where I...
You gotta say goodbye.
Okay, signing off. Thank you. Meta Spencer on YouTube. Hit me up. With
Oh my god,
yeah, subscribe.
Stop. Get out. So this segment is the whips segment, and I've got a couple things going on that are really exciting to me. The first is, I told you a couple episodes ago, I have abandoned my, I'm reaching down here to get it, I've abandoned my massive spindle, drop spindle, in favor of some other smaller ones, and the one that Debbie gave me broke, sadly, because it was just like a tester, you know. And I put out a call on Instagram, like, who do you guys love as a drop spindle maker? And many of you responded. I have great suggestions, and I will share some of those suggestions in the show notes for this episode. So if anyone else is interested in getting a drop spindle, you will have all of those suggestions at your fingertips. But in that conversation, I had two folks who were just really sweet and generously offered to either swap spindles or send me spindles that they had kind of lying around because they couldn't use them for one reason or another. So Sherry, thank you so much for the spindle swap offer, and a big thank you to Janet for sending a couple of her spindles over to me to try out. And my favorite one is this little Turkish spindle that she sent, and I think you'll be able to see it in the camera there. It's really, really, really tiny, and I love it. It's really lightweight. It spins like a dream. I mean, once you get this thing spinning, it just runs forever. It'll just go forever. I've been standing there at soccer games and all kinds of different places just spinning on this thing. And you can see I've amassed a little bit of spun fiber. I even got Spencer, my husband, to try it out the other day. I kind of said, he was watching me spin, and I said, hey, you want to try it? And he picked it up and went in the kitchen. And of course, he was like spinning for a little while, just standing there. And then he's like, you know, you knitters need to get up on a ladder, like a step stool. So he's because he wanted it to go farther, you know, like to keep hanging farther and farther down. So he stood up on the couch and started spinning with it and just letting it drop further and further to the floor. And I said, you know, the thing about that is that you have to wind on the yarn, and unless you use that fancy technique that I haven't been able to figure out yet, where you put it on your fingers and kind of like bring it close and then unwind it again. You know, I've just been like, I'll spin it and then I'll stand with my arms yay far apart and just kind of wind it on. Since he was standing on the couch, he had like a good 10 feet of, so he just kind of mushed it together, just started winding it on. It was great. It was like a real family bonding moment. So Janet, thank you for the spindle. It has brought many moments of happiness to our family, and we have had some good laughs. And I have actually learned to drop spindle, and I'm really excited about that. And I'm trying to keep going with, this is the fiber that Debbie, my dear guildmate, gave me when she gave me her spindle tester. I'm not sure what it is. It's some kind of mystery fiber. It seems like a longer staple length fiber because it sticks together really well and really easily, and it has a certain kind of luster, which I associate with the long wools. So whatever it is, it's wonderful and it's great for learning. And I'm hoping to fill up this whole spindle with it before I even start on anything else. So yeah, that's the drop spindle, and that's my first work in progress, which is going well, and I've really been enjoying the ability to like take my spinning with me. That's a new thing. I have a travel wheel, but you know, even travel wheels, when you travel with them, they can get kind of knocked, and you have to. I just took my screwdriver to it earlier this week and was tightening up all the different bits and pieces of it, and so it's really nice to be able to just take the spindle and go. And I've actually come to appreciate that. It's almost like the slow spindling movement like has got me, and I like the speed of this. I like the relaxation of it. I love that I can just take it with me everywhere. So I've become one of you drop spindler people, and I will keep it up, I think, because it's just great to have something to carry along like that. Okay, the other work in progress I have is Spencer's sweater. Woohoo! As of last week, or last time I cast, I think I told you guys, like, survival knitting had me down, man, and that sweater had me down. I had cast on the ribbing like 3 different times and it just wasn't working. So I finally had some time over Thanksgiving and I cast on what I decided to be the right number of stitches, because I'm working with this Snailden yarn, and I'll show it to you. This is the stuff from the Falkland Islands, Snailden yarns. I think it'll show up on the camera there. So this is the Falkland Island wool, and it is, I think it's a mix of Falkland and Faroe Island wool, and it's definitely like chunky and rough, and it's a heavier weight than the Noragon Denali pattern calls for, and that was part of the issue, is that my swatches were kind of working out, but this yarn is just chunkier, and so it actually needed fewer stitches to be cast on. So, and I will show you, this is the project bag that my sweater is living in. This is from Rachel of Treehouse Knits, and she has a great little tag here that I think you'll be able to see. I snagged one of these bags. These were some of the first bags she put up in her shop for this season, and I just could not resist the little foxes. Oh my god, like seriously adorable. So that's Rachel of Treehouse Knits. She makes good bags. Okay, so this is Spencer's sweater. I'm ready to show it to you. This is the back panel, and this is on, right now it is on size 7 needles. And this is the Cable Wonder that is Spencer's sweater. So there are 2 different cable patterns going on. There's the braid chart here and the bone chart here. And so you get bone, braid, bone, braid, bone across there. And I do have ribbing. I did do the ribbing on this, and it is a twisted rib with a cable cast on. So it's very stretchy at the bottom. And that's good news, because as many of you know, if you're knitting cables, they tend to, you know, like do this, like squish up. So this looks smallish to me right now, but once I wash it and block it, it'll stretch out just perfectly to be, I think, just right for his measurements. That said, I don't actually know. I'm not one to usually fly without too much of a swatch safety net, but this sweater really boggled my mind, and so I'm rolling with it. And when, based on my swatch, based on my everything, it should work out as the right width for the back of his sweater to be seamed up. If it doesn't work out, it'll be a damn nice cabled pillow, I suppose, and I'll start over. So I'm in that mode. I'm like, post-survival, just kind of like, I really wanted to get this on the needles and see what happened, and it is on the needles, and it is looking really cool. And if it doesn't work out, it doesn't work out, and I'm okay with that. And that's me as the process knitter talking, just kind of like, I'm enjoying the cables, working with this yarn, trying to like explore it and see what happens with it. And so I'm just gonna trust my gut, trust what swatches I do have, and just go for it and keep going for it. So I'll keep you up to date on that. Now, a couple of things to note, I will say. Low Miles wrote to me after, I think after the episode where I talked about this sweater, and she said, you know, when I do sweaters, I do my ribbing last. And I thought, Lo, you are a smart woman, and here's why. And she said you do, so instead of just starting at the bottom with your cable cast on and then working up with your ribbing and then doing the rest of your cabling, you would do a provisional cast on, you know, at the base of your sweater here, not here, and then you knit all of your cables, everything else that was swatched to be correct, and then at the end you'd come back and you'd pick up your provisional cast on stitches and you'd knit your ribbing this way, and then you'd be sure that whatever ribbing you put on was going to fit whatever, you know, bigger garment that you created. Oh, God, that's smart. And I almost took her up on it. I'm not the hugest fan of the provisional cast on I mean, I love it in terms of it's really useful. I'm not very good at it, so I find it to be a little fiddly. But when I did the Manning Park hat, that requires a provisional cast on. So I can do it, it's not my favorite thing. And I was just convinced after all of this watching that I was gonna start with the ribbing. So Lo, while you are totally right, and I will take you up on your thoughts on this another time, Oh, am I just jinxing myself by saying that I did it the other way? I don't know. Anyway. Oh, and Lowe's other reason for doing the ribbing last is that if you're knitting like children's sweaters, or sweaters for anyone who's going to grow or change, the nice thing is if you knit that ribbing last, then, and the kid grows, you know how kids do, they grow a lot, then you can pop that ribbing off, extend the sweater, and then put more ribbing on, and it's not a matter of like cutting into your knitting or anything like that because it's already provisionally cast on. Brilliant, I thought. You know, that's, Lo, you are a master of the modification, so thank you for that advice, and I hope it helps someone else sharing it with them. Oh, the other thing I was going to mention about the sweater, I have my show notes here. This is like post-survival, but I'm still like, my brain's not quite with me yet. It hasn't quite caught up to the fact that we're out of survival mode. Is that because I chose to cast on many fewer stitches than the pattern calls for, I ended up modifying the pattern so that I had fewer of these stockinette stitches on the side, and these are the stitches that kind of would be on the side of the sweater where the join is going to be for the front piece and the back piece. And that's not a problem that I have fewer than the lowest the pattern calls for, I think is 12. I think I have 6 here on each side. The trick is going to be when I get up to the armhole shaping. So I'm getting closer to armhole shaping at this point, but when you have 12 stitches on each side for armhole shaping, you just basically eat up those 12 stitches, bring the garment in for your armhole, because this is a totally seamed project, so you're doing back panel, front panel, each of the sleeves flat, everything's flat. So you'd come in and do your armhole shaping. Since I have only 6 stitches, it means I'm going to need to eat into this cable just a little bit when I get around to doing the armhole shaping. And I checked in with my guildmates when I was hanging out with them the other week, and Beth, bless her heart, said, you know, that's good because it would be it's easier to eat into this cable, which is a lot of singles, knits and purls, than to eat into this cable, which is like basically a 5x5 massive cable. So she said, yeah, that'll be no problem. And I tend to agree with her. So yeah, that's going to be a little bit of a modification mayhem moment with this sweater. The nice thing is, since it's in pieces, I'm working on the back and then I'll work on the front. Whatever I learn from the back, I can put into use for the front and the sleeves in terms of if the gauge is off, if the ribbing was off, if the armhole shaping doesn't work out for some reason. This will be, as I said, a beautiful cabled pillow. And I will restart the sweater. So I'm optimistic. I think it'll be okay. But you never know. So those are the whips, those are the works in progress, and the next section is on acquisitions. So acquisition-wise, I have come into something that I never thought I'd have, basically. And Beth put out a call. This is why it's great to be in a guild. Wherever you are, if you can get in a guild, like guilds are awesome, because there was like, in the last 6 months, there's been fiber swapped around, there's been patterns swapped around, like old patterns from estate sales and things. There's been spinning wheels swapped around, and warp boards, just you name it, it gets swapped in a guild. It's really great. And Beth put a note out saying that she had a knitting machine. And I was like, yes. There's just something in me that said yes, like I would like this knitting machine. So I got a knitting machine, and I was gonna bring it up here, but it's huge. It's like carrying a, I don't know, and it's like heavy, you know? I'll show it to you in another episode when I'm downstairs where it lives now. And it's a bulky machine, so it'll produce kind of bulky fabric, which is fine for me. And I'm hoping that it'll help me use up a lot of stash yarn, and it'll produce some fun blankets, maybe sweaters, depending on how bulky is bulky. I'm not quite sure yet. It is, for those of you who are interested in the specifics of it, it is a Toyota KS650. This is the instruction manual for it. And you can kind of get a feeling for it. This is the basic design of it. Right in the case, kind of. And it is a funky old machine. It is from, when is it from? They don't make them anymore. And I'm not sure exactly what the year is on this one. I wish I knew. I want to say it's in the 80s sometime. If anybody knows more about the Toyota KS650, I'd love to know. But it has punch cards. So you can use these punch cards to do different kinds of textured knitting with the machine. The machine can do cables, it can do all kinds of things that I kind of didn't expect a machine to be able to do. So I'm looking forward to exploring that. That is a huge, crazy acquisition. She said she used it a couple times for a couple of Girl Scout projects. Someone gave it to her. It's been kind of just been gifted and gifted and re-gifted over and over again. So I'm the latest gifter of this machine, and we'll see how it works out. If I find that I'm not using it, I know Christy in my guild, who also has some beautiful sheep, and I've been meaning to feature her farm, so we'll do that soon. Hi Christy, if you're watching. Christy has, she is next in line to be gifted this machine when and if I'm not using it anymore. So it will have a life. It's just going to continue, like a lot of our good fiber tools and stash, just kind of like live on after us. But the cool thing is that what made me think of all this is like Nancy of the Round Rabbit podcast. And if you haven't watched the Round Rabbit podcast, you totally should, because Nancy is a riot. She's always got something in her mug, and she's always got a great yarn project going on. She's got hilarious stories. She's just, you should just go check out Nancy on the Round Rabbit. But of late, she actually got a knitting machine. She picked one up, I think, from eBay pretty cheaply. And she's been just cranking out the fabric, just like amazing amounts of fabric. And she decided to use them, the fabric that she's creating, to make in her project bags that she sells. So I wanted to show you a couple of them. I think this will show up on your, we'll make it too much glare. Hard to tell how much glare we're gonna get. There, you can kind of see them there. So you can see the knitted fabric is incorporated into these bags. And her, she sells her stuff on bigcartel.com. It's just Round Rabbit at bigcartel.com. I'll put it on the show notes. Totally worth checking out. Beautiful bags, really nice big bags, kind of like the one I showed you from Rachel. So Nancy's stuff is beautiful, and I would highly recommend it. And she's been playing around with the knitting machine too, so she's been a little bit of an inspiration on getting toward knitting machine for me. So I will keep you updated on that acquisition, but I'm pretty excited about it. And okay, so that is that my acquisitions? Almost. Oh, there's one other thing I wanted to tell you that it came in the mail. And this is, of course, the latest issue of Taproot Magazine. Do you guys get Taproot? It's cool. It's been a really interesting evolution to see this kind of homegrown independent magazine, free of ads, keep going. I think they're on their 16th issue now. Is that right? Is this number 16? No, this is 24. We're way up to 24. And my letter was printed. I was so excited. It's like, look, there's my letter. And of course, it was a letter about what else? Modifications. So this is a letter I wrote in about modifications to one of their recipes. It was like a gluten-free, dairy-free, really cool beet cake kind of recipe, and I just made a modification to take out all the refined sugar because of some dietary stuff that's going on in our household. And they printed my letter. I was like, yay, a letter in Taproot. And it's about modifications, so that just suits this podcast very well, I think, especially for those of you who have been watching for a little while. You know I love modifications. Okay, so that is the end of acquisitions. The next segment is the Knit Together project and the 4-ounce challenge. These are two projects that we've had going on in the podcast for quite some time. And I will just say this about the 4-ounce challenge. It's been about a year since we started, and I am ready to offer some prizes for that 4-ounce challenge. So if you've been posting in the 4-ounce challenge, everything you've been posting is eligible, and I'm going to leave this giveaway open for another couple of weeks. So if you have been working on 4 ounces of anything, the 4-ounce challenge is like work on 4 ounces every couple weeks, post something about it, clear your stash out, just, you know, as a motivator. 4 ounces of fiber, 4 ounces of knitting, 4 ounces of crocheting, whatever it is, you know, go for it. So I'll leave that this giveaway open for a couple of weeks, and what I'd like to do is not give you more stash since you've been clearing out your stash, but give you, I'd like to draw for two winners for free patterns from Ravelry. So keep loading up that thread over in the Ravelry group with your wonderful projects and what you've been working on. It's totally fine to put them mid-project, like if you're working on 4 ounces of fiber and you spun 2 of those 4 ounces, put up a picture. That's great. And I will draw from everyone who's submitted anything to that 4 ounce challenge for this last year, and give away a couple of patterns. So awesome. And then the other project we have going on long term is the Knit Together project. And I didn't talk about it last week, but I wanted to make sure I talk about it this week so that if anybody's interested in getting involved, you totally know where to go and what to do. So on the blog on knittingthestash.wordpress.com, there is a page called Knit Together Project, or KTP. I'll put all this in the show notes. You can find it there, find all the specs. I'd love to get you involved. If you submit an 8x8 square made from some fiber or yarn that you have a good story for, then you'll be entered to win the final blanket when I put all these squares together. So the latest one came in from Jade of So Perfect Pearls, and she's the So Perfect Pearls podcast. If you haven't checked out her podcast, it's great. She's been around for about a year. We've been kind of like parallel podcasting for the last year, and she does some beautiful work. She works on hand spinning and knitting, and her square is this beauty. And it is so light. When I came in the mail, I was telling Spencer it's like a feather. It's just so light and beautiful. So this is from her hand spun, and it is from a bump of fiber from Created by LCB. She makes beautiful fiber, and Jade makes beautiful squares. So Jade tells the story of this square over on her podcast in episode 26 of the So Perfect Pearls podcast. And I don't want to spoil it here. I just want to spoil it by showing you the finished object, which is beautiful. So you can head over to her podcast and hear more about this square and her participation in the Knit Together project, which is awesome. So Jade, thank you so much. This is beautiful, and I can't wait to integrate this into the massive box of squares we have back there. This project will be going on for a lot longer, so if you're interested in getting involved in the Knit Together project, send me a square. I would love to feature it on here and tell your stories and get you involved in the giveaway and the project. So awesome. Okay, let's see. We are down to one final little segment that I wanted to do for today, which is to talk just for a minute about a how-to video that I'm hoping to put up soon. And that is, if you have sweaters that you bought at a Goodwill or a Salvation Army or at a big box store or something like that, and maybe they're acrylic, maybe they're cotton, maybe they're a blend. You don't exactly like the fiber, but you love the pattern or the way that it's designed. I want to talk about how to read the knitting so that you can kind of make a mock-up of that garment for yourself out of your own yarn that you'd prefer to use. So for example, I'm wearing my, this is my Lothlorien scarf, which is a Jennifer Wood of Woodhouse Knits design. I love that. But beyond that, I'm wearing this kind of cotton sweater that I always get asked about and complimented on when I wear it, but it is a big box store sweater. I'm not opposed to big box store sweaters. It's made out of cotton, which is nice for kind of like the weather we've been having lately, like 50s and 60s during the day. But I love the cabling on it, which I'm not sure you can see in the light. I'm hoping you can. It'll come out, but I'm not sure. And it has a reverse stockinette sleeve, which is, there you go. You can see that, and then cuff. And I like this sweater a lot. The weight of it is great, but I would love to kind of redo it or reinterpret it in a woolen or a wool yarn. So I'm hoping to do a how-to about how to kind of read your knitting and take a garment that you really like, or one that's falling apart maybe. I have another sweater that's white cardigan, really fine, and I love it, but it's too short. You know, it's one of those, I think I found it at Goodwill one day. It's really a great sweater. It's falling apart and it's too short, and I'd love to kind of recreate what I love about that sweater in a new sweater. So that is something to look forward to. Maybe over the spring will be one of those how-to videos, or maybe it'll be a series of how-to videos. I'd love to know your thoughts on this, what kinds of bits of information you'd like to know about, or what kinds of questions you'd have when it comes to taking a garment that you love, but that is either falling apart and you didn't knit it, or you know, you got it from Goodwill or a big box store or grandma or something, and how to reinterpret it for a new knitting project. So if you have suggestions, questions, design ideas for that kind of series of how-to videos, I'd love to hear them. Please post them here or over in the Ravelry group, and I will hopefully take you up on whatever suggestions you have in this series of videos. So I'm kind of excited about that. It's en route to kind of doing more design and thinking about design a little bit more, and I hope you guys will be excited about that kind of thing too. So that is actually it for today, and I think that was everything. That's like record time. We're doing pretty good. I hope you enjoyed the podcast. I love hearing from you, so please leave me comments here in the Ravelry group, on the blog, and I wish you a lot of happy post-survival knitting yourself as we go into the holiday season. Maybe it's not quite post for you yet, but survival knitting at its best, and eventually post-survival knitting. So it was nice to see you again, and I will see you next time. Take care.